The alarm cut through the mess hall before I even had the last tray stacked, and my hands froze on the metal shelf. 3 sharp tones, then silence, then 3 more. That was not a fire alarm. That was not a drill. On Kessel 9, 3 tones repeated twice meant one thing. An unregistered ship had docked without clearance, and every worker on this station knew what that could mean for the refugees hiding here. My name is Oliver, and I ran the chow line on this station for almost a year. That night I was alone in the kitchen, scraping the last bits of stew into a bin, when I saw her slip through the service door the way she always did. A small gray girl with enormous black eyes, moving quiet as smoke, heading straight for the corner table, where nobody ever sat with her. I did not know her name yet. I only knew she came every night after the others had eaten, picked through whatever was left, and ate alone. Tonight, though, something was wrong. She stopped halfway across the room, frozen, staring at the door behind her. Her small hands were shaking. I did not think. I grabbed her by the shoulder and pulled her behind the counter, down low, out of sight of the windows. Her breath came fast and sharp. She looked at me like she was trying to decide whether I was a threat too. Footsteps echoed down the corridor outside. Heavy boots, more than one set. I pressed a finger to my lips. She understood. She went still as stone. 2 men in dark uniforms walked past the kitchen window. They were not station security. I had never seen their uniforms before, and something about the calm, careful way they scanned every corner told me they were hunting for someone very specific. They moved on toward the refugee dormitories. I let out a breath I did not know I was holding. The girl grabbed my sleeve. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Please," she said, "do not let them find me." I asked her name. "Talia," she said. Just Talia. I did not believe that was her whole name. Not from the way she hesitated before saying it, but this was not the moment to ask more. I led her through the back kitchen exit, into the narrow maintenance corridor that ran behind the mess hall. Very few people on this station knew that corridor existed, because it had been sealed off years ago after a ventilation fault. I had found it by accident 3 months earlier while chasing a jammed supply cart, and I had never told anyone about it. We moved fast, staying low. Talia's small hand gripped tight around 2 of my fingers. Behind us, an announcement echoed through the station speakers. A calm voice, too calm, said that all refugees needed to report to the central hall for a mandatory identity check. That was not how station security spoke. Security never called anyone to the central hall in the middle of the night. This was something else. Someone had taken control of the announcement system. Talia's grip tightened until it hurt. "They are close," she whispered. "I can feel it." I did not ask how she could feel it. I just kept moving. We reached a small storage room near the old cargo bay, filled with broken crates and dust. I pulled 2 crates in front of the door and motioned for her to sit behind them, out of sight. "Stay here," I told her. "Do not make a sound, no matter what you hear." She grabbed my wrist before I could stand. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. "You do not even know who I am." I told her the truth. I did not need to know who she was to know she was scared, and scared children deserve help, no matter where they come from. She let go of my wrist, and for a moment, her enormous eyes looked almost calm. I left her there and walked back toward the central hall, because staying away would only draw more attention. A man who suddenly vanished during a lockdown would be the first person questioned. The hall was already crowded when I arrived. Hundreds of refugees stood in uneven lines, confused and afraid, while the 2 men in dark uniforms walked slowly between them, studying every face. A station officer named Grace stood near the door, arms crossed, watching the scene with a tight jaw. I had worked with Grace for months. She ran the docking bay checks and rarely showed emotion, but tonight, her eyes kept flicking toward the 2 strangers with open suspicion. I moved beside her. "Who are they?" I asked quietly. She kept her voice low. "They say they are compact enforcement, tracking down a fugitive who escaped their territory years ago. Command let them dock before I could stop it." "A fugitive," I repeated. Grace shook her head slightly. "A child," she said. "They are looking for a child." My chest went tight, but I kept my face still. One of the men stopped in front of an elderly Vantari woman near the front of the line. He held up a small device that projected a faint image in the air, a rough sketch of a young Vantari girl's face. My stomach dropped. It was close enough to Talia's face that my hands went cold. "Have you seen this child?" he asked, loud enough for the whole hall to hear. She would be traveling alone. No family, no clan marks. Nobody answered. The refugees stood in careful silence, the kind of silence that comes from people who have learned that saying nothing is often the safest choice. The man's eyes swept the crowd, slow and patient, like he had all the time in the world. I stepped forward before I could stop myself. "I have not seen any child matching that description," I said. "I run the mess hall. I would know if a child was slipping through the food lines without a guardian." The man studied me for a long moment. My heart pounded so loud I was sure he could hear it. "You are certain," he said. I told him I was certain, and I kept my voice steady, because a good voice can hide a great deal of fear if you make yourself hold it still. He finally turned away and moved to the next section of the crowd. Grace glanced at me sideways, and for a second I thought she suspected something, but she said nothing. She simply returned her attention to the search, her jaw tight with quiet anger at the men who had disrupted her station. The search continued for almost an hour. The men checked every dormitory, every storage closet, every corner they could think of. They never went near the sealed maintenance corridor, because as far as station records showed, that corridor did not exist. When the search finally ended, the two men gathered near the docking bay, speaking quietly to each other. I could not hear the words, but their posture told me they were frustrated. Whatever they had hoped to find, they had not found it. They boarded their ship an hour later and left without another word to station command. I did not move from my post until their ship had fully undocked and the sensors confirmed they had jumped away from the system. Only then did I return to the storage room. Talia was exactly where I had left her, curled small behind the crates, eyes wide open, watching the door. "They are gone," I told her. She did not move at first. Then, slowly, her shoulders dropped, and the tension that had been holding her upright for hours seemed to drain out all at once. She looked, for the first time since I had met her, like an ordinary tired child. I sat down across from her on the dusty floor. "Now," I said gently, "will you tell me who you really are?" She hesitated for a long moment, studying my face like she was deciding whether trust was worth the risk. Then she told me everything. She told me about a kingdom that had fallen years earlier, about a family that had been taken from her, about a single caretaker who had smuggled her out as an infant and raised her in secret, teaching her the manners of a court that no longer existed, hoping one day it would be safe for her to return. Her caretaker had died 2 years ago, leaving her alone on a station full of strangers, forced to survive on scraps and silence, trusting no one, because trusting the wrong person could end everything. "I am the last one," she said quietly. "If they find me, there will be nothing left of my family at all." I did not know what to say to that, so I simply told her she was safe here, for as long as she needed. For the first time since I had known her, she almost smiled. Word reached the exiled leaders of her people within a few days, carried quietly through channels I never fully understood, and a small group arrived at the station soon after, careful and quiet, asking for no one by name. I brought Talia to meet them myself. The moment they saw her, saw the way she folded her hands and bowed her head, in that same careful motion she used every single night over a tray of scraps, they knew exactly who she was. One of them knelt before her without a word. Talia turned back to look at me one last time, before she left the station for good. "You looked at me and saw a child eating dinner," she said. "Everyone else who searched for me only ever saw a target." I told her that was the easiest thing I had ever done, because seeing a person clearly never actually takes very much effort at all. It only takes the willingness to look. She left Kessel 9 that night, escorted by people who would finally keep her safe, heading toward a future I would never fully know the details of. I still run the chow line here. The alarms still go off sometimes, though never again for the same reason. Grace still runs her docking checks, sharper and more careful than ever after that night. And every time a new face slips quietly through my kitchen door, alone, unsure, watching me with careful eyes, I remember to look a little closer than I might have before. You never know who might be sitting right in front of you, eating dinner alone, waiting for someone to finally see them.